Welcome back, and this episode we are going to undo a whole bunch of stuff that we did so that we can move forward again. So if you haven't been following along, this is my Triumph TR6 Restomod. I'm cramming a 2009 BMW motor and as much as everything else I can into this car. So hopefully you'll stick around and see where we're going. We did some broad strokes last episode, and now we're doing that thing where we're taking one step back so we can take two steps forward. Listen, comment, like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, etc. It really helps the channel out. Really appreciate it. Also, I'm not sponsored yet. Hopefully, don't know, don't care. I make my own little units called Hornetics. The link is up in the description or wherever your description is. Check that out. So really appreciate if you want to support the channel any way you can. Thanks. Right, so last episode, we got the heater unit back in place. We got the gear selector in place, and we had the dash insert in place. And there was a lot of moving things around, just to make sure that the gear selector was going to be in a position where it wasn't somewhere inside the dashboard. So, with that, there is a lot to balance. But again, these are just broad brush strokes. We're throwing in some of the biggest pieces. I'm not worried about finessing them right now. I'm just trying to make these bigger pieces of the puzzle fit together so I can see what the whole picture is going to look like. This episode, what I'm going to do is, since the transmission is positioned, I'm going to mark it so that I can get it back into the same position without needing the transmission and motor in the car, because we are going to pull those back out and put them to the side for now. I don't need them right away. The other thing that I want to do is I want to weld in those frame supports that are lifting the struts into position. And I also want to try and at least get a bunch of the finish welding on the tin done on those supports. There's a lot to do, and with any luck, I also would like to get the seat back in the car so that I can trim away a bunch of the tunnel that is interfering with the current seat now that that transmission tunnel has been pulled backwards into the position it needs to be for that gear selector. So let's get started by taking out the stuff from the interior of the car and then yanking the motor. Okay, so what I need to do is I'm trying to find the center of this transmission tunnel here that is a big curve. So what I've done is I've just taken my my sliding square here, right? And I've put this one at 90 degrees, and I've got this one obviously is 90 degrees. I set this at a marked so many millimeters, and I can see what that distance is, split the difference, and then I can just mark the top of my curve. And because this sits right at the bottom and is flush up against the sides, I know that the center of my curve is going to be whatever the center is there. well, so what I did was I dropped the drive shaft into place just, to see how big it was and where it fit. Now, this tunnel is too low. The drive shaft is going to sit higher than this at the front. So I'm going to have to remake that tunnel, which is fine. As you can see, my center lines line up there, and I've got a little bit of space between the seat and where the tunnel is going to be. I'll custom make a piece of metal to go in there, and I may, I think that I need to have some kind of space. Now, like I say, the seat is probably not going to move forward at all. I'm going to it's going to be for me. If it has to go forward, I might get, 2 inches worth of forward movement out of it. The tunnel is lined up center to center here, which is good, and that's where it's going to be. So the passenger side is going to be a little bit different just because of the way the gear shift sits. I don't know if I'll be able to cut it in the same way. I might. I'll put the gear shift back in and see how much rubber there is there. I know that it seals tight against here. And I think a lot of the rest of the rubber flange that's around that is really just to go over the carpet and etc. So that is basically where that needs to be right now. So, like I said, I'm not going to worry about the passenger side just yet. I'll deal with that later. Now, I do have my seat back, pretty good. It's well far back, but that's kind of where it needs to be for my legs anyway. So, good. All right, moving on. Right, so another thing that needs to be done while I've got the transmission in is, as you can see, the linkage is pretty close. I need to take, 10 millimeters off that lip there, just to give myself a little bit of vibration room, kind of the same as I did on that side. So let's cut that out, or at least let's mark it, and then we can cut it later. Okay, so that's been marked. I probably won't cut it back that far. There's just no need. I'll probably, go to here and cut that and not worry about the rest there. So that's where I'm at with that piece. So moving on. that moves the engine back over here and out of the way along with the subframe. So this way I've got good access now to the front of this, and that will make doing what we need to do next a little bit easier. Now, we still need to weld these on both sides and all the way around. Just going to use a stitch weld, but I also need to put a spacer in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the front brace again, and I'm going to go grab my measurement that I have from this bolt to this bolt, center to center. I have that measurement from before I took the car apart. That way I can get the top of these exactly where they're supposed to be. Then what I will do is I'll put my digital level on this face and on this face, and I will split the difference. I will make sure that both those angles are exactly the same. Then I'll be able to take a measurement and figure out what kind of a spacer. The likelihood is it looks like it's going to be about probably a 1/4 inch spacer, something like that, in order to get this to sit properly. That 1/4 inch spacer also, or that spacer will also overlap this, which will give extra strength. And I will bring that piece all the way into this back area here. And what that will also let me do is it means I'll be able to weld along the front of this seam and all the way along this bottom seam, right up against the part, and likewise on this side. So yeah, I mean, there's still a bit of gunk on the inside, right here, that I need to clean off in order to get this to fit nice and flat. But what I will do is I'll scribe a line right here and right here so that I know that I'm exactly back and forth where I need to be. So let's go get that measurement and get that top brace back on. Okay, so I built this frame in CAD a while back, and I just pulled a measurement from the center of that slot to the center of this one here, and it shows it at 986.451 millimeters. So that gives me, my plates all have slots in them. Now I do have these location pins, but because of the way I have to step this up on washers, it's not going to work for me. So what I'm going to do is I am going to write that measurement down and in inches, because no, I've got a tape measure in millimeters. And we will attach to one side and then to the other. And if I'm not mistaken, when I designed this, I designed it so that the stud was right in the center of this slot. So yeah, let's get that measurement and go take care of it. All right, well, so I've got my measurement from center to center, and I am going to just bolt this into place. Now, I also have to remember that this, right, is tilted this way, which means the bolt goes on a diagonal this way, which means it's offset from the center line. So I'm going to eyeball up. It's going to be the outside edge of this nut. So what I've done is I actually modeled this up in CAD and took a look at the angles and the length of the bolt, the way it sits, and at that height, the outside edge of the bolt is actually the point that I want to measure, which makes it nice and easy for measuring, because then I'm not trying to measure to the center of a hole. So I am going to lock this down, and then I'm going to finger tighten the other side and go from there. So as a designer, this is one of those times where you look at something and you say, what is the most likely thing that they're going to do? Well, if this is pretty close to where it's supposedly supposed to be from my measurement, and I got 90 degrees on that surface and 90 degrees on that surface to ground, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say to myself as a designer, would they have done it at 89 point something degrees or some weird angle? Or would they have made the top plane of the frame rail parallel to the ground and the face of this 90 degrees to that plane? And the designer in me is going to say, yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to make it some weird, micro angle out. So, given that being a spot on measurement, if I take a measurement from over here to over here, it's saying it's not where it's supposed to be, but it's supposed to be 38 and 7/8. But that just makes no friggin' sense. I know that my frame rails are exactly right. They are in the right place. I measured them, when I went to build this frame, I measured from the inside of this, knowing what I was going to do, to the inside of that before the car was even taken apart. And I set my frame rail distance. The fact that from those measurements, my pins and my bolts all absolutely perfectly line up, zero clearance with the subframe, tells me that my frame rails are in the right place and that they are at the right distance. So, all things equal, engineers, especially car designer engineers, are going to do things that initially lay out geometry in a logical sort of way. When you build a car, when you build a car of this type, like the BMW, you start in one place and you work your way through. And 90-degree angles is one of the first places you're going to start. This is going to be one of the first places you're going to start. So anyway, that is what I will call good enough for me. So let's call that good. I will bolt this down so that I can remove it. And then we will get on to welding some frame. Okay, well, that's got a stitch weld, a nice heavy one. Going to give it a grind down flat. Did the inside and the outside of both. So that just takes care of that up to a point. The outside I'm okay with. I'm going to grind it down. I'm going to put in that spacer plate. I use this bar here to keep my distance correct, so that there's no warpage, and that is the correct size bar. And then what I can do is when I go to weld all of this up, I'll move that bar up here so that this doesn't pull it weird. And again, what I will also do is I'll put the bar underneath the car when I am doing my roll cage, etc. So that is to where I can at least put on the put these into place. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I just need to grind that down and get that spacer plate in there. And of course, I forgot to take a measurement of the spacer plate, but I do want to clean off, like get rid of little grommets and all the other crap there, and I'll dry fit it again now that this has been welded, just to make sure that everything is in the right place and everything is good. So that'll go back into place soon. So next on the agenda is to actually take the crossbar off of this. I didn't really need to put it on. It was more just because I wanted to measure the hole distance and check the angles. But what I can do is take that bar off, put these on the bench, and clean them up and get them ready for welding. Yeah, so let's get that going. Okay, so it has taken me about almost an hour to just clear off any of the sealer around the spaces where I'm going to have to weld this part. So I pulled it back a couple inches from any of the edges where, there's going to be welding done. This stuff just smokes and it stinks, and it's probably not good for your lungs. So, I could probably spend, another hour just getting rid of the last of it. Factory sealer is good. There are a few spots though, surprisingly, like right here, where I pull off the factory sealer and there's rust, and there was sealer on both sides. So you got to wonder, that just moisture in the factory is enough to cause rust, and it's obvious that the whatever the sealer was that they put on this when they dipped the car isn't quite enough to keep it from eventually rusting. So anyway, I'm going to get going on the second one, which is right there. And probably won't record that. I'll just make it happen, and I will show you the two of those once I have them done and they are back into place on the car, at least dry fit into place. All right, now that these are all cleaned up, I've got them in place, I've got them spaced. I haven't tightened the top bar, so it's not perfect, but I have a 3/8 inch gap here. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to get some 3/8 by 1/2 inch material, and I'm going to use that to fill the the space, at least the, the border of the space. Now, back in here, I want to do some support on this this bracket here, like I want to do some kind of a plate that will bridge, that's going to bridge these pieces. So I will weld them, I'll grind them down, and then I want to put a plate to bridge them just to give them extra structure. So under here I want to do the same thing. So I'll run that piece here, and I'm going to half lap it so that I can weld tight against here, and then weld this seam, and I'll stitch weld the top of it. Over in here, I'll decide what shape my cover plate's going to be, and it's only going to be 1/4 inch, the same wall thickness, 120 wall, so it's not going to be massively thick. And what I'll do is I'll trim back the material here and do filler in there so that I can seal this completely. I'll get some grommets to fill these. I'm not going to metal fill them. Just takes so much time to just, weld those up when I can get little plastic or rubber specialty grommets that'll fill those holes. That will do that. And then on the inside here, it's just going to get a solid weld all the way, and it'll get a weld along here, and the same on this side, so once I've got it exactly where I want it, it'll get welded, and that will absolutely graft those into place. Now I still have to finish weld these here, and I think what I will end up doing is actually welding those on the bench. It's going to be a lot easier, and I have the two pieces over there that go on that side, so I'm probably going to weld those on the bench. It's just going to be easier to do. I just wanted to get this in place to see how I was going to move forward with this. I just welded this piece across here, so I got that piece back on, and on the inside I've welded this one all the way through there. Now I do have a bunch of patches to put in because, cut things away. I should have just taken this whole piece as one. The same over here with this side. Gave it a weld, got it back in. I've got a little triangle there, and then because this one isn't back in the original place, it fits differently. So I got to put in a little piece in the corner there, which I will get to as well. But that wraps up those two pieces so that they are pretty much ready to go into place. Over here. So I think what we'll do is just dry fit them in now. Okay, just got those dry fit. As you can see, I've got my spacer just held in place here, but basically what I'll do is I'll clean up this edge, and that's how it's going to get welded into place. So I'll run a stitch weld across the top and a solid weld on the bottom, and then I can weld the actual strut to that as well. I'll put a filler piece in here. You know, I've got some extra length, so I'll be able to cut a piece to fit nice and clean in there. I'll trim the back side, do the same on the back. On both sides, and then it'll get a seam weld all the way around here, and I'll probably drill a couple holes and put some plug welds. There's already a hole in here, but I'll do some plug welds while I'm at it, just for, you know, added strength and stability. It'll get welded all the way across, or at least stitch welded along there, and then it'll get puttied, you know, so that it with caulking, so that you know, any water that gets in there will just roll off. So there is that just sitting in place. Now what I can do is I can get the box back into place. Just, you know, make sure that this is in the right position. Make sure that everything's right, and then just lock that in. I'm also going to weld it to the body of the car, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because I still need to finish weld and put in my strengthening gussets on the whole frame. So this body still has to come off of the frame so that I can weld all the way around all the seams on the frame itself, finish off some of the holes, things like this that need to be repaired and patched and plugged, as well as I have to put in the seat rails and a couple other things that I need to do before I actually weld the body to the frame and make a unibody. So there we are. Well, that's really all the time that I've got to work on it this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. I hope that you're enjoying the content that I'm doing. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Make some comments. I'd love to know what I'm doing right or wrong. And if you get a chance, hit that link in my bio. Grab a Hornetic unit and support the channel. Thank you. See you next time.